All right. Welcome to the Education Collective podcast. And it is your host. I didn't forget my name, the Pivot Strategist, right? And so, gosh, I really missed y'all last week. Like, I really did. But my kids were out on school break, so there's no way I could have recorded a podcast. But I am glad that I took last week off because I was really involved heavily into some very rich conversations around education, around reading, around AI. And it has been interesting. So that's kind of like what I want to talk about today. It's not going to be a very long podcast because this is just going to be the intro to what we're really going to get into. On the second season of the podcast is where I will have a guest each week. And so I'm so excited because I've been lining up my guests because we're going to get into it. Okay. We're going to get into all of the things that, we've been kind of chatting about when it comes to like special education, reading, teacher like chronicles, principles, all of those like amazing things. But something that really sparked me last week when I was kind of like talking with other just like-minded individuals, whether they were in the education sector or if they're not, or they're just in the community. One of the things that continuously came up is the subject of reading, right? And kids learning how to read. And me, that got my wheels turning because I'm like, oh yeah, like this is my jam. Like, let's get into it. So, one of these like posts on TikTok that I ended up stitching, it talks about like kids learning how to read, right? And how it is a parent's responsibility to, be your child's first teacher and teach the kid how to read. Okay. Y'all already know when I kind of say, okay, then I'm about to get controversial. So, yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. Kids learning how to read is not necessarily a black and white thing, right? And I do think that there is a space where parents should be reading with their kids. They should be introducing them to letter sounds. We have look with Gracie's Corner and all the other wonderful digital resources that kids can use when they're 2 and 3. Those kids are like sponges. They pick up that amazing information. And so essentially, I think that I speak for the education, part of the world in saying that you should be exposing your kids to this. And here's the thing, and I really feel like this could possibly even be a misconception, I feel like, is that, if kids are struggling to read and if they're just not getting it in the classroom, then you obviously didn't do any of those things when they were kids. I personally feel like that's a misconception because that's not necessarily true for every case, right? So just speaking personally for myself, I have two kids who actually were struggling readers. Now, I introduced them to books before they were even born, right? Like, you're reading to them while they're in your belly, right? And you're doing the letter sound, the letter, the blending. And for me, I'm an educator, so I know what to do, right? But that's why I say it's not so black and white. So here's the question that I pose, and I really want us to pause and think about it, right? Because reading and learning how to read and just the functionalities of reading is not so black and white, is it the school's responsibility to teach kids how to read? Or do you feel like it is the parents' responsibility to teach kids how to read? We're pausing. I really want to know. If you're looking at this on YouTube, the visuals, put it in the comment section. What do you think? If you are leaving a, I don't know, review or comment on the podcast, on the podcast for where they put the form of the podcast. Okay. I just had like a brain freeze for a second. So if you're there, leave a comment and tell me. If you're listening and looking on TikTok, leave a comment in the comment section. Now, tell me, what do you think? Is it a teacher and a school's responsibility, or is it the parents' responsibility? Now, I see mixed reviews when I do research, because you have a subsection of parents that are like, no, like it is the school's responsibility to educate my child. They're not wrong. But then you have a subset of educators, principals, who the community leaders who are saying, well, because we don't see your kid until 4, typically don't start really getting into the nitty-gritty of reading until 5, then what about those 5 years before? Like, shouldn't you be doing something with your kid to expose them to books? And because the reality is in kindergarten, they should actually be coming to kindergarten, sorry, kindergarten. I'm sorry, y'all. I just gotta laugh at myself. But they should actually be coming to kinder with reading skills. Okay. I'm sorry. Like, by the time they leave kindergarten, they should already have known and used at least 200 sight words. I think I read somewhere where it's 400. I'm like, wait a minute. Now, here's the trick to that, y'all. Those same 200 is what they start first grade with. So, I mean, honestly, if your kid didn't catch on to the 200, you just need to work with them that summer, because they're going to go over those same 200 the first semester of first grade. But you didn't hear that from me. Now, so yes, is that also true what educators are saying? Absolutely. So then whose responsibility is it? It is a bridged responsibility. If you're watching the visuals, then you see this. A bridge. Y'all can tell what kind of educator I was in the classroom. Okay. Like, I'm giving you all the visuals. Okay. But yes, it is a shared responsibility. A shared responsibility. I'm going to say it one more time for the people in the back. It is a shared responsibility. Now, let's talk about this shared responsibility, right? So, if it is a shared responsibility, then how does that really work? Parents should be exposing their kids to books, to reading. A kid's experience with reading or hearing someone read to them should not be when they get to school. It should be in the home. Here's another caveat to that, because I think as educators, we do get into this mindset of, well, the parents should be working with their kid at home. I also think that's true. I'm not going to go out on that hill. I'm not going to say, well, nah, teachers shouldn't expect that. I'm not going to go out on that hill. Here's a question. Now, I pose to you, if you're saying, educator, see, I'm actually talking to myself as well because I'm an educator. If you're saying that parents should be teaching their kids at home, working with their kids at home, how does that really work when they don't really know what they're doing? This is not me calling parents stupid. Like, that's like far from the case, because I was ignorant in the fact of thinking that the way that I learned how to read, the way that I learned how to do math is the same way that kids learn now. That is far from the truth. That is like way far from the truth. Kids are learning how to conceptualize math, math skill concepts, formulas, and all that kind of stuff. So you know how 2 + 2 = 4 now? No, they got the kids conceptualizing and breaking down two into, it's like but then we as the, because we the aunties and the uncles now, so we as the old aunties and the uncles now, we're like, why don't you just 2 plus 2 is 4? But then the kids are like, no, you have to be able to, break down these whole numbers and all of this other kind of stuff. Math teachers, don't fight me, because I really don't know the math talk. Okay, I try, but I don't know. Like, if we're talking about reading, we can get into it. Okay, but and even the way that kids learn how to read, here is my own personal story that I'm sharing again. So I technically did not learn how to fluently read until I was in the 5th grade. Now, if we're looking and listening to statistics, then I technically shouldn't have even graduated, let alone have gotten multiple degrees. so so it's a it's a catch 22, right? Because here we are, we want parents to help their kids at home, but are we equipping them with how to help their kids at home? I think that's more of the question that I'm, posing, is that yes, like, parents should be helping their kids, right? Going back to my personal story. So I have a struggling reader right now who personally belongs to me. Now, I took it upon myself to ask the school, what reading curriculum are y'all using? Because not every school or not every district uses the same reading curriculum. So they told me, oh, we use Orton-Gillingham, which, by the way, is the best of the best. Okay. If you have a struggling reader, if you have a reader who is like you're like, man, I don't know why my kid is not, can't read. Or even if you're an educator and your school is not using Orton-Gillingham, if it were me, I would actually go and buy the curriculum myself so that I can truly understand what it takes to truly teach kids how to read and how to intervene with different reading, like like struggles, right? Processes, right? Because you may have a kid who knows how to, say their letter sounds. They're struggling with blending them together to make words. Or you may have a kid that you're either teaching, or a kid that belongs to you, that knows how to fluently read. Oh, they can read 1,000 words a minute, but they can't tell you what they read. So Orton Gillingham can really, kind of lead you down the right path to kind of help them kind of draw those connections. Here's why I say Orton-Gillingham is the best of the best, okay? Here's why I say that. It's because the Orton-Gillingham reading curriculum, it's actually originally designed for children with dyslexia, right? And so, and it's interesting because when I actually started doing the research, I'm like, well, my child doesn't have dyslexia, but I see, how this, reading curriculum can truly help struggling readers, right? So what I did was I asked the school, hey, what reading curriculum you're using? They said Orton-Gillingham. So I immediately got on Amazon, and I didn't find all of what I was looking for on Amazon. So I just Googled Orton-Gillingham curriculum. And they have like not packets, they have like full curriculum boxes of things, and it's age based as well as grade based. And so they even have like pre-assessments where you can kind of see, well, which one do I need to buy, and they give you so much just like resources on, well, this is how you're going to teach this to your child. So it's not leaving you in the cold, because as an educator, I would expect a lot of my parents to work with their kid at home on a reading assignment, but that was because I assumed that they knew how to work with them on main idea and on author's purpose. That was my assumption, because I'm like, oh, well, they're an adult, they should know how to do this. I actually know how to do it because I have to know how to do it. See, it's one thing to know something, but it is a skill to teach a child something. So there's a difference, and so now my next question is, are we expecting something out of parents that is unrealistic? Are we? I mean, parents should be working with their kids at home, but to what extent? I really want the answers to these in the comment sections of wherever, my podcast is posted, right? I really want to know, like, what is the expectation? Because and here's another subset. category of parents, right? I mistakenly assumed that all of my parents were on the same academic level that I was on. So there I was in for a rude awakening. So here, if we have a families where, parents have dropped out of high school, or they themselves were struggling readers and never got the help that they, needed, deserved, whatever that may be, then what do you think is coming down the pipeline? Because there are studies right now that I have been kind of researching and reading, that links a mother's reading proficiency level in connection with how a child's reading proficiency level will, kind of pan out. And so there aren't many stories in connection to fathers, but definitely mothers. And so that is another consideration, because we're sitting here and we're expecting kids to come to school with just, aha, like I got it. We're expecting these things, right? But is that realistic? But that was me talking to the educators. So now I'm really talking to parents, okay? Because just because you may not know does not mean that you don't need to find the resources to find out, right? You know how technology savvy the world is now. So at that point, why then are we waiting to get a report card to say that our kid does not know anything? Why are we waiting? What sense does that make? You know your kid can't read. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, okay? You know your child can't read. But we're just going to sit here and wait until the report card tells us they can't read, and then we're getting mad. That doesn't make sense. For my struggling reader that I have in my home, I knew that she was struggling, right? And so now that I know that she's struggling and she's working through that, I look at report cards a little bit differently now. So when I see a does not meet, in my mind, I'm like, well, she's working on it. Listen, I'm not looking at things in a deficit mindset, especially because I'm helping my kid. I'm just not. You can put a does not meet all over those report cards. I do not care, because you want to know why I don't care about a piece of paper is because I see the progress, right? So you are tracking where your child was to where they are going and where they are right now. And if you see huge improvement, if you're talking to the teachers and the teachers are like, man, like so and so have grown like tremendously. Like, yes, they may not be where they're, at standard, which is why we still have to put does not meet on the report card. But gosh, they have grown so much. You may have a scholar who may be, let's just say they're a year and a half behind, right? But by the end of the school year, they grew over 1 year's worth of growth, right? But they may still not be at that grade level expectation. Does that mean that that kid failed? No, that does not mean that. On paper, the kid does not meet grade level standard. But why are we not looking at the things that the kid is now able to do? Why are we not looking at that? So I feel like parents get caught up on a piece of paper when at the end of the day, burn the paper. Okay, I'm a little hyped. Okay, I'm a little hyped. Let me calm down. Whatever with the paper. like, because at the end of the day, we got to get out of this piece of paper, especially if you're helping your kid. Now, if you're not helping your kid, then shame on you. Shame on you. It's too much technology out here that you can never say, I don't know how. You have YouTube tutorials that will tell you how to do something. Heck, TikTok is now the new search engine. TikTok can show you how to. You got those teachers on TikTok that's showing the students and the parents how to do certain things. But then you also have resources like Khan Academy. Get you a membership with Khan Academy. It's not that expensive. Khan Academy will literally give you problems just like what your kid is doing And it will work out the problems where your kid can work it out with the Khan Academy problem, right? The way they're building a lot of these school resources like iExcel has gotten so much better now because it gives you videos. It didn't used to give you videos. So again, with AI, those learning accelerators I talked about in the other podcast, guys, we got to start waking up. Parents, like it's not an excuse to say you don't know anymore. Like, yes, I talked about the teacher side of the expectation, but at this point, parents, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you because I'm like, at the end of the day, it's not okay to say, well, I didn't know how to help my child. Well, I'm sorry. When you want to figure out how to get down to the nearest cookie shop, you on Google trying to figure it out. So at that point, you should be on Google trying to figure out how to help your child. Better yet, if you don't even feel like doing that, get on your phone and say, you know what? I'm going to message my child's teacher and I'm going to say, hey, I really want to start helping my child at home. And so, is there any way I can come in to just kind of observe and as well as get some additional, just feedback on how I can help my child at home because I really want to see my child succeed? Let me tell you something. If you message your child's teacher that, I can guarantee you are going to get a response. I guarantee you are. That's all teachers are looking for is parents who actually want to help their kids. But let me tell you something, parents. If you act like you don't want to help your kids, what do you think the education is going to be like for your kid in school? Come on, y'all. Ain't it time to get real? We all know the parents who don't care. We know. We know. And guess what? Your kid also knows as well because they come to school and they say, my mama and my daddy don't care. My grandma don't care. They love to say it. They love to say it like, oh, my mama don't care. Man, my grandma don't care. They love to say it. Oh yeah. And guess what? We know it too. Now here's the thing. Me using my heart to do this job, I'm not even gonna do your kid like that, even though I know you don't care. I'm not gonna just sit here and not care that your kid doesn't know how to read and doesn't know grade level stuff. I'm not gonna do that. But guess what? You got some teachers that will. You got some that will be like, oh, well, their mama don't care, so it is what it is. And so that is a trickle down effect. So that's why I said it's a shared responsibility. It is. Like it or not, it's shared. And at the end of the day, the full responsibility of that child is on the parent. Okay. Like just because you send your kid to school does not mean that you're still not responsible for your child. You still are responsible. I get it. In school, like we have a responsibility to make sure these kids are safe, they're taught, that's cool, but it still is your child. Like, so me personally, I would not sit here and allow my kid to just fail and me not do anything about it. I get and I realize that to hire a tutor, it takes additional resources, right? I.e., money. So I get it, which is why I started a nonprofit organization called Youth of Promise, who offers free tutoring and mentorship services to students of need, right? And so for me, that is why I started that organization because I saw like how expensive it is to hire a tutor, a good tutor at that, because you don't want anybody who can say, oh, I know how to do math. Okay. Do you know how to teach math? Do you know how to do intervention? Do you know how to do all of those things? If you don't, then I'm sorry, you're not a good tutor. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like you're not. Teachers make the best tutors because it's like your kid gets another teaching opportunity, right? Like they get another learning opportunity. It's not just let me help you with your homework. You do have those tutoring services out there who will just help your child with homework. Is that going to help them bridge the gap between foundational skills they don't know to what they need to know now? No, it's not. So anyway, guys, my website will be will be posted in the podcast information because again, I told y'all, I'm boots on the ground. Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you what the problem is and not offer, some sort of solution, right? But I get how expensive that can be. And if you got multiple kids who are struggling, I mean, you do the math. Who has $500-600 a week just to spend in tutoring? Like, depending on how many kids you have. So I get it, but that's still not an excuse to say, well, at least I won't try to help. There are resources you can buy, even if you feel like your finances are not quite where you want them to be right now. Go on Amazon. The Orton-Gillingham reading book for like first graders, or let's just say you got a first grader, right? I think that book is like I want to say $6.89. So even if you had to save $1 every month, like do what you got to do. I'm sorry, do what you got to do. Like these are hard conversations that we got to have, but there is no way we're gonna see any kind of trajectory moving forward until we really address the hard things that we don't really want to talk about. And I get it. See, while I was in the classroom, now I had to really preference this conversation with, oh, your child is doing so amazing, knowing that, I needed to have a real conversation with those parents. But again, some parents don't like to hear the truth. They don't like to hear that, oh, your kid cannot do this yet. I didn't say that your kid wasn't gonna ever be able to do it, but help me help you help your child. That's all I'm saying. And so going back to the discussion of is this a shared responsibility on kids learning how to read? And I'm specifically only talking about reading right now because I feel like that is at the forefront of every subject, right? So in math, you got word problems. In science, you got different labs and stuff that you're going to do that you're going to have to read information for. Social studies, you're learning social studies is nothing but reading, but just in a historical like concept, right? You have STEM. Like, how are you going to do certain projects without knowing how to effectively read? You can throw something off if you don't know how to read the directions. So reading is everywhere. Even when we get out in the real world, you can't go to the grocery store not knowing how to read. Yeah, you may be able to say, I know that this is ketchup because ketchup is in a red bottle. But what if they start serving ketchup in a white bottle? Then what? You got to know how to read. So reading is everywhere. And I really feel strongly, guys, I wear it on my chest and on my back. We got to get these kids reading. We have to. I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to everybody. Like I started to analyze and check myself because I'm like, look, I know that I was a struggling reader. However, I had well, the thing is I had a village, right? So I had a lot of people around me that was really rooting and helping me. We need to get back to the village approach, something I talked about in episode 2 of our podcast. Go back and take a listen to it. It takes a village, y'all. It takes a village. If I can't get it done, if I work a lot, I don't know. I got a sister, I got a cousin who I can just, hey, can you please help me? Like, can you help me with my child? Like, give my child this and see if you can help my child with this. Like, or even go to the teacher, see if the teacher is willing. Guys, we got to start just stepping outside of ourselves for a moment and say, you know what? It's my child's future that is on the line here. And that is why I took my job as an educator so serious, because I'm like, you cannot play around with people's kids and their futures. Like, you can't play around with that. You are either in it or you're out of it. It's no in between. You cannot ride the fence when it comes to kids. Okay. So I said all that to say that this of course will be a continuous conversation because, guys, y'all know I'm all about reading. Now, if you're all about math, I will invite some math gurus on here on the podcast. I actually have a few guests coming up on the second season, so I think we have about 1 to 2 more episodes of this season. We're going to take a small, maybe week or 2 week break, and then we're gearing up for our second season so that we can start getting into the nitty gritty of, subjects. Guys, I actually have a list. So let me look up my list right now before we go. That actually just made me think, oh, let me just get out the list. Now, here we go. So we're going to be talking all about special education and IEPs. Guys, if you have ever wanted to know more about special education, if you've ever wanted to know, well, does my child need an IEP, or what is the history behind individualized educational plans? Like, if you ever wanted to know that information, or if you guys are like, hey, my child has an IEP, but I want to know more, like, please make sure you tune into the podcast because I actually have some special education administrators who are going to come on, and they're going to talk about the special education, process. We're going to be talking about the differences between an IEP and a 504. A lot of people don't know the difference. To be honest, I didn't know the difference until I actually researched it for myself. This was before I got into schools. If you know that your kid goes to a school that I know this is about to be contra I can't even say the word. Um if your school has PBIS, just know that we are going to be talking about it here. And that's the positive behavioral system that schools use. My kids' schools use them, and I just think it's a waste of time. But, but that's neither here nor there. I hope they're not listening right now. But I hope they listen to everything else before. But anyway, we're going to be talking about the science of literacy. I know that that is a hot topic word that they're throwing into schools nowadays, but they're not really explaining what the science of literacy is. We're going to be talking about curriculum, ed tech, AI again. We're going to address teacher pay. So teachers, if you want to chime in on that and you don't want your principals to know you're chiming in, just take a listen to the to the podcast, okay? We're going to be talking about other subjects such as like why children are failing. We're also going to talk about on the next episode. So I'm going to leave y'all on this cliffhanger. Did y'all know that Fulton County in the state of Georgia, Fulton County, they are building a new and big prison? Now you may say, what does this have to do with the Education Collective podcast? If you're looking, you see my eyes. Are your wheels turning like how mine are? Why are they building a big prison? Who are they getting ready for? Because again, they haven't started building the prison, but who are they getting ready for in Fulton County? I don't know. I'm gonna leave y'all with that. Who do y'all think that Fulton County is getting ready for with that prison? And we're gonna talk about that on the next podcast episode because I want to draw a connection between standardized testing scores and private prisons. And I'm out.